Alrighty, folks, welcome to our Tuesday live stream. It's going to be a fun one today. I think it's always a fun one, but we've got Tag from Life Done Free, John Willis from Special Operations Equipment. I'm Nicole Sauce from Living Free in Tennessee. And well, let's start out with the big question. How do you guys build freedom in your life?
Oh my goodness. That is such a complex question. That's like layer on top of 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 layer. And probably will all have a different answer, but for me, it's about challenging the system around me at every corner, anything that I can come up with that can get me out of the system more and more. And then the other one's surrounding myself with community and putting myself in a position to where, I'll give you an example, Nicole. Saturday, we're going to go build a house. The entire community is getting together on Saturday and we're going to build a freaking house, and not a little house, a 2,500 square foot home. We're going to build on Saturday with a whole bunch of us. And so that's how I do it.
That's awesome. How long will that take?
So I'll bet you on Saturday, we'll get the exterior walls all up. I'm hoping to get the trusses boomed, maybe the plywood on and be on to the paper, for the roof in one day. And what's so cool about this is the guy, and this is actually an interesting story. You guys will like this. So the guy that's building it is a guy I met 2 self-reliance festivals ago. I met from you guys who bought land in my community, came down here, and we're building his house on Saturday. But so one day we'll get a long ways. We're hoping to get it weather tight. I'm hoping there's about 40 people out there, and it'll go quick. I mean, once you get that many people, it's boom, 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 and it's done. But he's going to end up with a house, and he's going to get that house built for 50% less than what paying someone to go build it, because we're going to do it ourselves.
When you say 40 people, are those 40 people who have worked on building houses before, or do you have a portion of those just have never even seen a hammer?
Yeah, so some of all. So there's about 6 of us who are pretty experienced at it, and we'll manage the whole process and make sure the wall got squared, those kind of things. But there will be people who are picking up scrap, and there'll be people standing there trying to understand what's a trimmer, what's a header, what's a cripple, why does it matter? Why are you pushing the weight down right here? What, those kind of things. So it'll be an all mix, but everybody will come out of there. Even the people that don't know anything will come out of there with a sense of, hey, this isn't that bad. We can really do this. There's a doctor who's going to be there who, ironically, I also met at the Self-Reliance Festival, who bought land out here. And she is going to come out and witness the whole thing, and they're getting ready to build. So she gets to learn a whole bunch, right there. So I guess the answer, John, is all the above.
That's super cool. There's several times, probably a dozen through my life, where people have said, if you ever get the chance to witness an Amish barn raising, you should always watch that. And what you guys are doing, it seems like it's even so much further beyond that.
Yeah, it's cool. It's modern. We're building the code, but it is, I guess, Amish with a little bit of militant in it, maybe. I don't know how to explain it really, but it's cool. I'm super excited about doing it, and we're going to blow it out of the water. I can't wait.
That's cool. That's cool.
Are you making video while you're there? Or are you just going to get it done? Yeah.
Yeah. So we here in our community, we do what's called the homestead rotation, and so any homestead can say, hey, we're going to do X this weekend. So the last one I did was a year ago at my farm. We did firewood, so I'm going to do a homestead rotation video where all the homesteads come together to build this man a house.
Yeah, that is awesome. I think what's interesting, we've never built a house, so we do smaller projects in sort of a homestead blitz with the Tennessee GSD crew. But what I've noticed is you end up having roles of people when you get that regular rhythm, and there are the people who keep everybody fed and hydrated and run to the store to pick up the materials, and there's the electrician guy, and there's the person who knows how to square a wall or frame a wall, and it just sort of naturally happens, and you have natural project leads who come up too. So wrapping my head around that on the scale of building a house in one weekend is a little different, but I think that's awesome.
It's all management. That's all it is. It's no different than any other part of our lives. It's living this lifestyle is all management. This is all it is. It's just management.
Yeah.
That's it.
How big of a house from 30-day reviews?
Yeah. So I think it's going to be about, if I remember correct, about 2,700 square feet.
That's cool.
Yeah. The more communities can do stuff like that, the less and less they matter.
Yes.
The they that people always talk about and ask permission to do things from, that they don't really need permission from.
Yeah.
So,
you guys,
they don't matter. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Do you fall under codes and zoning where you're at?
Some. So there's no building codes, There's no electrical. I mean, there's no inspections except on a septic. So if you put a septic in, they'll come inspect it. But you get a building permit out here, at least where I live, your building's done. The only thing the county wants to know is the footprint, what you said it was. So they'll come out and they'll measure it. But other than that, they're not allowed in your house. And in fact, you can make them appraise your house from the road here where I live. You're not they're not even allowed on your property. But so no, there's no real building codes other than a septic.
Yeah, we're very similar. They'll come out and do a perk test, and then they want to record, if the septic was put in by a company, they want a record of where that's at.
Yeah.
It's interesting in the smaller Tennessee counties, I'm starting to see a push at the county level to try to get more building codes and more like violation reports, like the chicken thing going on in Dixon. So it's something to keep an eye on in any rural county. There seems to be a push afoot to change that. And one of the beautiful things about living in such a low populated area, like here we have an electrical inspection to hook up to the grid and that septic inspection. That's it right now. They're not telling us how far apart to put joists and making sure that, you build a whatever kind of driveway. It's just, you just build and you're done. And amazingly, there's not that many fires or houses falling down around here unless they're a couple 100 years old.
Yeah. Or unless it's self-induced.
Yeah, that does happen too. So I hear through the grapevine.
We're pretty lucky here in that we've got a good handful of people with a good broad base. I mean, so I don't know what my role will be Saturday. It will probably be either managing the project or being on the cut table, one of the two. But either one, we got enough experience. We understand how it goes together. He'll end up with a beautiful square plumb lined house. It'd be a great deal. And we've got 2 other houses still yet to build that are in rotation.
So Jason says it's because California are trying to California, Tennessee. That might influence it some, Jason, but there is a strategic effort at the local level by your Agenda 2030 or whatever they're calling it these days, people, to get this enacted. The way they took over Oregon was land use planning and zoning, and then they, under the auspices of saving farms, started destroying farms basically by using those zones, weaponizing them, and it completely shifted the state. Like, I lived through that, so when I see it starting to happen here, I'm like, wait a minute, we did this. I left for a reason. Let's keep this place cool and free and awesome. So, it goes back to Agenda 21, and you've seen them actually hit every one of those marks. And then it's 2030, and now it's 2035, and it's exactly what's happening. And all of your local politicians want nothing more than to politic over more and more people. It's not codes. It doesn't say codes on those vehicles. It says code enforcement. They want to enforce their will and their policies, and then they want to be able to come in and fine you, right? We were just talking about this at lunch. A buddy of mine said, they wanted us to get a permit to make our 4-bedroom house into a 3-bedroom house. And he said, we just did it. I go, that's all good. But where they get you is when you go to sell the house, the inspection, and then they come in and fine you. And while you might have gotten out of that, the next dude coming into that property pays that fine. And a lot of these places will come in and actually make you file for a permit to tear out and demo that, and then apply for a permit and redo it. And what should take, like what Tag's doing, and they're going to basically build this whole entire outer shell of this house in a day. But you could build this up and wait 90 days for a dude to show up to bless you. And then they got to inspect all your framing. Then they got to inspect all of your wiring before you can even cover it up. And they want to come in and inspect the slab. You might wait 90 days every time you have to get another bureaucrat to come out there. But that's really what it's about, enforcement. It is literally enforcing their will and holding you down. And God forbid you buck up a little bit or say anything to that person. And the person enforcing it, they don't have what you do. Most of those people don't. They just show up to a job and they're miserable in their lives, and they're going to extend that misery on anybody they can, and they're going to penalize you with as many fines as possible. Well, and you get stuck in that mommy said, daddy said, and they're in a dysfunctional marriage. Yep. And so one inspector will say, you have to do it this way. You'll do it that way. A different one will come to inspect you. This happened to a friend of mine in a 180-year-old house in Tennessee in a bad county to live in. And the stairway at the very bottom, it's a half inch. The last stair is a half inch longer step. And they're like, you have to rip this whole like 180-year-old beautiful stairway out to fix this half inch. So he just never got, he never got another inspection after that. He was like, I won't have an occupancy permit in that case. Whatever.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but I think, don't we create all that? I mean, I think at the end of the day, if we do what we're supposed to do, the laws will never get there, right? The codes will never get there. I mean, in my county, they know if the crew walks into the county courthouse, there's a crew. They have to face us. And I think that's how we do it, is we have to go through that process, because if we're just going to sit on our little homestead by ourselves in fear of being put on some list or whatever it is, you are alone. Your road is hard. You're never going to get anywhere. You got to yoke up and you got to go make a dent. You got to go tell them no. You have
the tag is on all the lists.
All of them. Yeah.
So John Bush always says, if everybody's on the list, nobody's on the list. That's one of my favorite John Bush quotes. Here's the challenge from the freedom perspective. Like, we come to this wanting to live our lives and build them the way they're going to be. And we just want to be left alone. Yep. And being left alone does not include running for county commissioner and sitting as a political entity in your county, which is a miserable existence. But then I'm watching Don Gorham out in Dixon keep everybody informed with what they're doing with backyard chicken regulations. And I'm thinking, like, if she runs for office, she might be able to change that.
Mm-hmm. You know, they just asked her to take over the Libertarian Party there.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that happened. Yes, she announced that yesterday.
Yeah. Is she going to do it?
I think that she is.
Oh, boy. I need to call Dawn. Okay. Anyway, but, you know, if you can get in office, and you can get elected on the local level if you're sort of the right mix of things for the local level, well, then you're in this position where you don't really have power to do things and people want you to do things all the time, but you can stop or at least ask hard questions about some of these sort of rote template things that they're trying to push through. That being said, John, are you going to run for office? You want to run for office?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I don't either. That's the problem. So we need the people willing to do that. And I don't know, there may be a point where I'm like, maybe I should go for county commissioner on something at some point.
Yeah, imagine if it was even compulsory, right? If you had to do 2 years and we put the person who was most eligible to do the job in there, right? The politicians that are in there now, I mean, look at, name any of Nancy Pelosi, right? How long has she been a politician for?
Oh, man.
Since she was 20? I mean, that's all of those people up there. I mean, I don't even know how I believe that some of them aren't alive, right? But I mean, that's where they're coming from. That is their goal, is to be a career politician. They have no idea what the real world lives as. They have no clue what it is. They don't walk amongst their own people. They have to have a security detail when they do.
Yeah, I think on the national level, there's not much hope. But I do think on the local level, you know, we've got a guy in our community running for commissioner this next cycle. And if we can pull that off, we'll end up with 2 of the 3. Now we have majority. We can actually make some dent. You know, our local sheriff here has been elected, is one of only 2 constitutional sheriffs in the state of Kansas. And we go out of our way to make sure that guy gets elected. I mean, we get involved because at the end of the day, this is all we can control. And yeah, I'm going to talk about this, Nicole, at Self-Reliance Festival, but to do it, you got to be intentional. You got to be willing to do the suck. You got to be willing to do a little bit more. You know, you just have to, or you're going to be right where you are. That's it. Those are the only choices.
Yeah. And, you know, the idea, I think about some, like, you made me think of the Mormon church where they assign you your job on a rotation in their parishes.
Yep.
Which is interesting because I think that's an effort to break the political influence, although it still ends up there. Like, humans seem to be predisposed towards power structures and that political strong arming. So it's interesting to see how different places have tried to bust that approach. Yep. Okay, John, what are you doing to build freedom in your life?
Sorry.
Wait, no, that was a great start. I mean, you're doing Habitat for Humanity without Habitat for Humanity. Perfect.
I don't know that I am trying to build freedom in my life. I just kind of do whatever I want to do. I don't really look at it like that. I've had nothing, right? I've been to prison and came home with zero, and I've started over with zero more than one time. So it's very easy for me to become comfortable, and comfort is complacency, right? So I get on here and have these conversations, and I look at what Tag does, for instance, and I go, man, I'm really not doing very much. So, you know, I need these just kind of as a reminder. It is easier for me to get up at 4 a.m. and just do the things I want to do. But I mean, it's all, I tell people to start a business, right? I think everybody can agree, no matter what position in life you're in. Everybody gets so stuck on the doomsday stuff, right? The end of the world's coming. And I tell them, you know, I'm 52 years old. Every year of my life, something was supposed to end the world. And if you think the end of the world's coming right now, number one, do you really believe that? Have you maxed out your credit cards? Have you taken a mortgage on your house, right? Because if you do that, had I done those things the other years and taken out all kinds of loans and stuff, if we truly believed the end of the world was coming, you know, you'd be completely ruined at that point. But what happens when the world doesn't end? And I think every single person can agree, with more money, you have more options. You don't have to go spend that money, but everybody says, you know, my passion. But if you woke up in the morning and all of a sudden you had $100 million, would you be doing the same thing? And if the answer is yes, well, then you're probably doing the right thing. And if the answer is no, more money would fix what you're doing. Everybody kind of just settles for stuff. I know I didn't directly really answer that question, Nicole. I don't know that I have an answer for it. I just do the same things over and over, and it's the foundation. People get that foundation done, and then they move on to these other things, and they branch out. And then 5-10 years down the road, they're like, well, why isn't this working? Because you've left your foundation, right? Mm-hmm. Go back to the basics. And if you always do the basics, then, you know, you're not going to start working out and look at yourself in the mirror. You might notice a change, but where you really notice that change is at 5 years, at 10 years, at 20 years. If you look at people that are in shape, and you look at a 25-year-old kid that is in shape, he looks amazing. And then you look at a dude that's 60 years old and in shape, he's way more vascular. His muscle, he's more mature, right? It's the maturity of it. So I don't know.
It's interesting that you bring up the money piece and the start your business piece, because you do. That's what you usually say to sort of like when people ask you, what should I do to get out of this mess? And the question you asked that I think is just one to sit on for a second is, would you be doing the same thing today that you're doing if you didn't need to earn money? So when somebody finds themselves at a crossroads, like I need to go right or left down this crossroads, that's a really good place to go. Like pretend everything was paid for and I didn't have to worry about money. Which road would I go down? If you're able to step back and do that and choose that road and use it to build the money that you want in your life, you end up in a much better place. And that's something I think a lot of advisors forget to mention to people when they're talking about finding your passion and building your business. They're focusing in on the money and not on how to make the path you want to live pay for itself, which is a different mindset.
And then you said advisors too. People take advice from people that are in no way qualified to give them advice. You can ask somebody's opinion, but when you really, this thing right here, these things gives everybody a voice, and everybody shouldn't have a voice. And well, you can have a voice, but people shouldn't listen, right? You have this perception through this lens of how people's lives are, and you think, oh, that looks pretty cool. But then when you meet those people, you realize that it's all complete bullshit. It is just a fabrication. It is a slight sliver of the pie. You know, it's 10% of the pie that you see through this lens. So be very careful who you're taking advice from. I don't run around and make videos telling people what they should do. If you ask me, I will tell you what I would do.
Yeah. He'll also ask you a hard question that you won't realize was a hard question until the next day when you start thinking about it. And then you realize he just planted the seed. Do you know you do that?
The answer can evolve, you know, it can change. And the day that you gave the original answer, it probably was the right answer. But if it starts eating at you and it's in your head the next day and it's in your head a week later and it's in your head a month later, you should probably, you know, unravel that a little bit.
Yeah. I think we often forget how evolution of thought, ideas, and action happen in humans, that we go step by step. And sometimes we say, this is definitely the way I want to go. And then we take 2 steps down that way, and it is definitely not the way we want to go. And people will have that don't give up thing. And sometimes when you realize you're 2 steps down the wrong path and you change direction, that you learn something there and you moved on. But knowing what you don't want is as important as knowing what you want. And we forget to tell people that, or people, I guess, in society, you don't hear that message a lot. You hear the opposite of that. Just follow your dreams. Okay. What's the opposite of your dreams?
They need to experience it too. I mean, I was looking at something in a homesteading group the other day, and somebody said, I think I want to get rid of all my animals. And I was surprised. There's like 100 or so comments in there. They're like, yeah, this is a lot of work. I want to be able to leave. I want to be able to go do other. That's awesome. But you could tell people who are getting a homestead or think they want to do that, look, start with 1 animal. I mean, everybody, all of us say it, start with 1 animal. Don't build Don't build an instant zoo. But until you do it, it doesn't mean the same thing until you're like, man, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
I think the main money problem is people have the wrong emotional tie to money. And because of that, it causes so many problems down the road. And I wish I'd have known that when I was 20, because I'd have gotten to financial independence a whole lot quicker had I understood. I mean, why in the world would we save money if they just print it?
Yep.
Right. What's the point? Right? Why would you do that? That's silliness. We focus so much on the front side of a money argument, and we give no attention to the back side of the money argument, when the truth is the backside, there's more money to be made. And so I would challenge everybody, encourage them to look at their relationship with money.
It's the instant gratification. People get a little bit of it. We were talking about that today, and it's just like people starting businesses out. When they make that first $1,000 sale, they're like, oh man, $1,000, and they start thinking, well, we can just kind of coast for the next couple of days. Whereas you can't, because when you make your first $10,000 day, you're going to think the same thing too. But that money never comes back. When you miss those sales on that day, I mean, my business is very different than the business you do, Tag, but I'm direct to consumer, individual customer. If I coast and we don't put an email or a text out one day, and then we do the next day, you might catch some of those guys, but some of those are gone. Like, it's never coming back when you take a day off.
Right.
Yeah, that's the eternal pressure of running your business. I was talking to somebody the other day who, I guess we compare, it was Toolman Tim and Brian from the Lots Project, and we were basically saying the skills that we've learned doing vastly different things. Toolman Tim does handyman work, and he does tool reviews. I sell coffee, and I have a podcast. Lots Project, he has a podcast, and he does consulting, and he sells comfrey. So very different things, but it's the same skills to have built a customer base. It's the same skills to have, learned the hard way. When you slack, it turns out your sales go down after a good day, which is, it's a good lesson to learn when you're like, oh, I see. There's a direct relationship here. And the same thing with, customer service and learning how to attract the right kinds of customers, keep them, and then learn that hard lesson of who not to keep. Because at first you're just like, everybody will be my customer. And then you realize, actually, I don't want everybody as my customer. I'm going through that on the landlord side right now.
A lot of that was conditioning, though, because how many people took a business development class or listened to some business development stuff over the last 30 years with the customer's always right. The customer's always right. That's not always the case, right? And where did that come from? That came from Woolworths, the corporation, years and years ago. It's just like a diamond is a girl's best friend, right? And you should spend 3 months of your income to buy that diamond ring. Where did that come from? That came from De Beers, right? The company that owns all of the diamonds that come into the United States. So they wove that. So if you actually had no business advice and you hadn't had any programming, would you actually take care of that problematic customer, or would you cut the problematic customer loose? When we cut the problematic customer loose, they typically come back under a different name with the same address and buy the same stuff. The other thing that happens is when I'm trying to service that same problematic customer over and over and over, and it's never just a guy with one problem. It's always a list. You recognize the name when you have it typically. When you finally cut that dude loose, He goes to somebody that perceives themselves as your competitor and does the same thing to them. So it bogs them down. And while they're servicing this problematic customer over and over, their easy customers are finding us. It's just now I have a little more time doing this, so it might be a little bit different. But I mean, I could do a whole we could do a whole semester probably on that.
Yes. You could do a whole presentation at Self-Reliance Festival just on that one topic.
Yeah, we could do a lot more in depth than that even.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's interesting because at the same time, when customers tell me that there's a problem, I really appreciate it. Because sometimes I don't know. I don't know there was a problem with shipping, or recently somebody said their dark roast coffee didn't taste the same. It turned out my roaster was broken and I didn't know it. And then I burned it up Sunday. So I finished breaking it. But what was going on, I think, is because one of my elements was out, it wasn't getting that final boost in temperature as fast. It wasn't as sweet and smooth in the end. And I bet you I have 100 other customers who didn't tell me that the coffee tasted a little different for the last 4 weeks.
Yeah,
and
probably so.
So I really appreciate the one who was willing to tell me that. That is not a customer I fire. That's a customer I have a conversation with. In fact, they're getting a sample pack of different roasts once the roaster's fixed. So
that's also when you put that email address into your email system, you don't have 100 nitpicky emails from that guy either.
No,
that actually was a real.
Yeah. It was somebody I know well enough. It was delivered by text message and not email, as a matter of fact. Okay. Nicole, I know this is off topic. Can you guide me to some good resources to look at getting an aquaponics system started? I plan on using tilapia as the best base fish. I cannot list websites off the top of my head, but I can tell you this. If you go to the Survival Podcast on YouTube and sort of drill down into some of Jack's videos on building aquaponics, because he's done extensive work on that, it will get you started on what resources to do. I don't know what part of the country you're in, but if you join on Telegram, Self-Reliance Festival has a community, and a lot of guys in there are able to build aquaponic systems, so they can talk you through how to build them. Brian from Food Forest Farms is also very experienced in growing food and establishing the fish to nutrient balance in aquaponics. John has a system you can see in person at the Self-Reliance Festival. And is the person who built it going to be there? I don't know. Tad, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think Tad will be there, so you can ask him. If not, we have a number of people who can show you how it's working and why it's working. So lots of ways to go. I think my biggest advice on getting started with aquaponics is start with a small system if you're going to build it yourself and see how it works. Focus on the plants more than the fish. So you're looking for a balance to grow plants, not how to grow fish for meat. The byproduct is fish for meat. And it was very hard for me to wrap my head around that. But once I focused on the plants, the fish stuff followed in my system. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
I don't do it. I don't know.
Everybody wants to start with tilapia. Do you have tilapia in your refrigerator right now? The answer is probably no. It doesn't have to be tilapia. I know every time you hear something from a third world country about how chickens poop in the water and the tilapia eat it and the nutrients feed, you always hear tilapia. I have koi in mine. I know catfish work. There's a ton of stuff. Don't limit yourself to tilapia unless you just want tilapia. Also, when you go to buy those fish, you can buy them right off Amazon. They come from Atlanta Goldfish, and you can buy all of your aquatics and stuff. I don't have any, attachment or affiliate with them, but I have bought many times off Amazon, and my fish show up the next day via FedEx.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I have goldfish and koi in my system too. I don't worry about the meat whatsoever. I can go to the river to fish if I decide I need some local freshwater fish, and I'm a terrible fisherman, so it will take me days to catch one. But or I can buy it at the store if I really want it. It's in Oregon with tilapia, you're going to run into, if it's an outdoor system, the cold weather problem where you bring the tilapia in for the winter too. So I would tailor your fish to your environment there, because the person said they were from Oregon. Yeah. That was and now for something completely different. Aquaponics. John's got a really cool system, though.
We don't maintain it at all. I let it freeze in the winter. It breaks the pipes. When it unfreezes and water's leaking, we know which pieces we need to cut out. I don't heat my goldfish. They're koi. I don't heat them. They freeze into a block of ice. Every year, people are like, oh, that's going to kill them. I still have my fish. It never kills them. They're pretty resilient.
Yeah. I do the opposite of John. I put like row cover on my beds. My system's smaller than his. I put a little stock tank heater in there so it doesn't freeze, so I can have vegetables off it through the winter. So, yeah, we're playing the opposite game there. But I mean, the goldfish have been really easy to keep alive, and they eat the bugs. They eat the algae too. Okay, building community tag.
Yes, ma'am.
We talk about building community, and we do it in general terms. Let's get more specific. How do you keep in touch with all the people in your community?
Oh, so yeah, this is important. And communication is key to running a community. Absolutely critical to running a community. And so we do a lot of different things. So for example, we have our own newsletter that just goes out inside the community. It comes out every other month. It just talks about, usually there's a section about, a local law, like water rights, for example, or mineral rights, or whatever it is. Last one was about raw milk. Anyway, then there's just a bunch of stuff in it, happenings, the Midwest Preparedness Festival's coming up or whatever. We also do Zoom calls. So like, for example, every Wednesday, we have a Zoom call for all the local homesteaders that are building, that are in the construction phase, so they can get, things off of each other. We have lots of text groups, we have lots of those kind of things. But I talk to people in my community, many of them every single day. Around. So communication is super key. And, but of course, I think if you're building, you want to be reaching out, right? Because there's all these smarts out there. I'm really smart in what I'm really smart at, but I'm a dumbass in what I'm not. And, so I think from that perspective too, I think everyone would want to, but I think the short answer to this, Nicole, is you got to be intentional. You got to make an effort to go do it, so that's how we do it. But we talk a lot.
How about you, John?
I try not to talk to people, actually. I'm not a good, if you want to talk to, you communicate with me, Nicole, which is usually I send something to you and you're like, why did you say, oh yeah, here's why I sent it to you. But I do, I got about 20 people that I send things to and we communicate back and forth, but my circle's pretty small. Like I get more done by having, I don't know. I have very few close friends. So we talked mostly through text, right? Because I can tell you what I need you to know and you can tell me what I need to know. Yeah. Me building community or whatever, like Tag does, it's during SRF. That's really like, people are constantly like, I want to come by and hang out, or they say hang out, but they mean, see what you do. But I don't ever have time for that. People do come by to say hello, but I literally work and work and work. And on a day-to-day, like when we're doing this video for 90 minutes or 2 hours, I have to work way faster before this. And then when I'm off of here, I have missed time. So like we will work. Like we work when I do a live at night at 9 o'clock. When that live is over, I get in bed at about 11 o'clock. And then I'm going to be up tomorrow because we're going to film all day. I'll be up at 4 a.m. again tomorrow, and I'll probably go to bed tonight about midnight. So I just get work done. And most of the people that I communicate with are people that are involved in my work somehow.
Yeah, I think the other thing John does that cannot be discounted is every day at 9 o'clock, pretty much. He does a live stream and people in the comments ask him questions and say things, and he reacts to that. Because of that, he creates a conversation. Those people start talking to each other, and they're taking some of that burden of staying in communication and building because there's a pretty solid SOE community around you, John, beyond people that you're texting videos to or whatever, or who you're doing business with. And part of it's that you showed them that they exist, and then they started taking the yoke on that. And that's another way to do it without being on the phone all day long. Like I see Jason from Kentuckable Sustainable Living says he's on the phone half the day and texts with people back and forth in his community because he's built a really cool community in Kentucky the same way. So
I think it's important to note that community is not a singular thing. It's not. People think, and when I started all of this, what I used to think community was me and 5 buddies and an off-road Jeep, 2,000 rounds of ammunition, and a year's worth of food, and we were going to survive the zombie apocalypse. But it's not how it is. And community, you know, to me is a whole bunch of interlocking circles, and community's grand. You know, what I consider the mind, which is the 4th ring. This is what John's talking to. You know, it's the like-minded. It's building the community, and it's equally as important as any of the other rings, and in fact might even be more because it's where everything comes out of. So it's just not a singular topic. It's a big topic.
Yeah, I think your network is more important than the money, because through the network your livelihood comes, right? It's, you know, when you know a guy to hang drywall, then you don't spend 5 days hanging drywall in Nashville. You can tell I'm butthurt about that right now, right?
Yeah.
I totally didn't. I was like, that's something I don't want to do that I'm going to do anyway because it matters. But yeah, I with the Living Free in Tennessee community early on found the people who were always talking on social media and asked them to moderate the groups so that I didn't have to be the person, you know, when the duct cleaning scam comes or all that stuff happens. But what's happened because of that is when new people come in and are asking questions, they know all the answers and they answer the question. So often I'll see something, you know, that happened yesterday and it's already been handled. Somebody already knows how to do this or where to get that or how, you know, which event they should go to near them. And I think that's really important in community is one person doesn't build it. And when you are a person who sparks community, it's knowing your role as the spark is important and not the control freak.
Yeah, Nicole, this is a super important point. You know, in our community down here, I get a lot of credit about, oh man, you built. No, I didn't. I played one little role, and it might have been the face in a lot of ways, but I don't manage it. I don't run it. It's not like how that is. We don't live in a commune, you know. I mean, it's not how it really works. We have an intentional neighborhood, a whole bunch of people who have all their own sovereignty and do all their own thing. But it is super important. We have great leaders in our community. I don't have to be the leader. There's plenty of them out there.
Yeah, you do have great leaders in your community. I like working with those guys.
Yeah.
So awesome. Okay, off-grid living.
Love it.
I know John is off-grid completely. So
I'm who, me?
Yeah, I was being sarcastic.
Got it. No, I have power.
Sarcasm emoji. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've got city water too.
You've got some powerful city water at your place.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we're the second on the line from the pump station.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, awesome.
So Tag, what new things have you observed in the last month or so about off-grid living and the off-grid living community?
Oh goodness. You know, there's a lot of people don't understand this about off-grid living, but it's freedom is really hard. You know, it's not free. When you got to take responsibility for everything. I mean, you know how many people are behind the light switch to ensure that light switch comes on or behind the water pump to make sure the water stuff comes on. So you've got to, you know, have the stomach for it to manage it all. But I would never go back. I'll tell you that. You know, I love that I have, you know, no mortgage, no car payment, no water bill, no electric bill, no sewer bill, no, you know, I can just pretty much do whatever I want to do. They're not allowed on my property. They got no jurisdiction on my property. They can't come down my road. It's none of their business. And I can tell them no because I put the pieces in place. From an off-grid living perspective, that's kind of why we built Grid Down was kind of this whole theory. You know, people think it's confusing and that it's, you know, this is a super complex thing, and it can be, but it can also be very, very simple. And so I'm seeing a lot more people kind of make the move. You know, it's interesting, when we built Grid Down, we originally built it to really just help our community. So I'll buy everything wholesale. You know, we could put these turnkey systems in, everything will be great. But then on the internet, it just started taking off. And so, you know, I'm seeing sales continue to increase. I'm seeing more and more people reach out for that off-grid perspective. I don't know if they're just scared of what's coming down the pipe. I mean, there's a million things out there that could, any of them,
yeah,
you know, could be that. So I'm excited that people are you know, going through the great resignation and are looking for a better way of life and are searching for those things. And I'll support that any way I can. Yeah,
the thing about off-grid living that is interesting to watch just from a communication standpoint is the incessant arguing about what constitutes off-grid living.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, you're on the internet, so you're on grid, dude.
No, I'm not. Not in my day.
Right. So people start arguing about these definitions, and I'm just thinking, okay, so this one person figured out how to heat water with the sun. And yes, they have electricity, and yes, they have whatever else. But just that one step means if the power goes down, they still have hot water, for example, if it's sunny outside.
Right.
And there is so much you can do. And I think what's happening is a couple of things. One, it feels more environmentally friendly to be producing your own electricity, et cetera. A lot of people go straight to solar in their minds for off-grid. Mm-hmm. There's like that combination of lifestyle change and what you're implementing. But also, a lot of us have been observing that the power grid is not super stable lately, mm-hmm. and it's becoming less stable, and it takes forever to repair. And then you start thinking, like, what else can I do to not have to depend on those guys, because they're becoming undependable.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, vastly undependable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to depend my life, and I'm not going to put the safety of my family and all of that in the hands of some bureaucrat somewhere that decides they like what I talk about or they don't. Yep. I'm not doing that. And, you know, people, you'd mentioned the, you know, environment, and there's a lot of people who go off grid because of the environment, because it's a less footprint. To me, that's just a bonus. I did it because I don't want to follow rules, period. I don't want them in my business, you know? But I don't know. I encourage everybody. I think energy is right up there at the top of the water. I mean, I would literally put it way up there because of what it does, the force multiplier that it gives you. Could you imagine trying to run your homestead without a drill? Oh my gosh. I mean, just something so simple as a drill.
Yeah.
Could you imagine trying to run your business without the internet and a computer?
Right.
Yeah, people did, though.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, people, they did. They don't anymore. I could not do what I do, nor could Tag, without the internet and a computer.
Yeah, off-grid, to me, all off-grid simply is you're away from the utilities. That's water, electricity, and sewer. That's it. Now, the next level of freedom, we talk about this all the time, is off-matrix, right? How do I get out of the matrix? That's a whole nother topic, but off-grid's just those simple three things, and they're 100% achievable. And
you'll feel so good when you achieve them.
Yes.
Especially at 10 o'clock at night when you're snaking your septic system on a cold night. No.
And that was a cold night.
Yeah, it's always on a cold. It's like -2 outside, and I'm out here freezing my butt off, doing the worst job ever. I was thinking about that today because I used to run this whole homestead by myself, and now I don't have to. Yeah. Now there's somebody else who lives here who does it too, and I realized, like, I haven't spent a lot of late nights trying to get water running in the last 2 years. And that's not that it didn't have to happen. It's that somebody else did it the last 2 years. And that's, you know, but I used to have to do that. And I can do that. And I'm sure I'll have to do it again. But I don't know. It seems like Murphy's Law of things breaking is always after dark and cold. Or 100 degrees outside and it's your AC. So.
Part of the journey, though. It's part of the journey.
Yeah. My crooked little homestead says, I've used my outhouse -40 here in Ontario. That's something about a homestead. Have an outhouse. Even though everything works, have an outhouse, because now you have a backup plan.
Yep. Getting off grid, and I would tell all the audience, anybody who's listening out there, is not unachievable. It can be done in baby steps. Whether it's water, no matter what it is, it can absolutely be done. You just got to go do it. It's not complicated.
It's just like building the house, right? Guys look at that 2,700 foot houses. I couldn't ever do that, but there's a ton of videos where guys have built a 1-room, shed, and then we put solar on the shed, and then we do water catchment on it. Just start as baby bites. I mean, how awesome would it be to have just a small building in the back where you had a mini split, you had some solar, and you had water catchment, and you had something to pressurize water with, where you could just go on the weekend and just, if you want to read, you go read. You want to paint, you go paint. You just want to, for whatever, right? And then if the power really went out, you have this thing where you can go in and have it warm or have it cold, and you don't have to heat a massive building or something like that. And then once you do that, you have accomplishment, and you learn the things, right? Like when we were building this building out, and the contractor said, "Where do you want your light switches?" I said, "Put them where they should be." I didn't know they're supposed to be on the other side of the hinges. I've got 20 light switches that are on the back side of doors in this building. I know now, right? And you're going to learn all those things on a much smaller scale that's obtainable. Plus, it's a lot easier to move wood, in trusses with two guys when they only span, 12 feet across versus, 65 feet across.
Right.
It's a whole different ball game. Yeah. Light switches can be really annoying when they're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
I had a left-handed carpenter put the light switch in the wrong place on a bathroom in my guest cabin. Every time I go down there, I'm like, where is it? Oh, there it is. It's the same thing. It's the wrong side of the door.
We've had this building. We've been in this building for 8 years, and I still open doors and reach for light switches that are not there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's funny. Have you ever thought about getting them moved, or is that just too much work?
I don't care enough. We're just going to build another building.
Mm-hmm.
Not surprised to hear that. Okay, here is from Brawl Dog. Building community is the tough part. You need social skills, communication skills, and the drive to get out and find like-minded individuals. In the end, it's all worth it.
Yep. Has to be.
I don't know those things help, but even if you feel like you don't have those skills and you get out and you make an effort to talk to people, you'll be surprised what you find and how that changes your life. There's so many people who just stay inside or don't. I mean, I'm an introvert. I understand. I get tired after being around a lot of people, but I also like it. So it's like I'm an introvert who liked it. And so I do it. And because of that, my life is so much richer than if I just stayed alone and didn't try to find people around me, and getting to know your neighbors nearby, even if they're not the people who you would normally hang out with. It doesn't hurt to know them. I was talking to Joel Salatin, and he said, after hearing one of my community presentations, he was like, I got to go talk to my neighbors because we've had some strife and they don't approve of how I raise my animals. And actually, we need to put that behind us, because if something regional happens, we're who we've got. I had a big fight with a guy down the road over city water, and I didn't talk to him for a year. And then finally I was like, I guess I got to talk to this guy again. Like, the thing is over now. And someday, we're going to have to figure out which trees we're dropping on the holler road. So I need to know which side of that tree he wants to be on.
That's true too. When you hold a grudge against somebody, 9 out of 10 times, they don't know you're mad at them. They just know they haven't talked to you in 10 years, and you're super angry and you're thinking about them all the time. And those people have just gone on with their lives. They don't have any idea. There's a ton of people who have moved to Camden and Benton County. I see them on social media because they have farms and homesteads, and they're selling eggs and they're selling chickens. Those are all potential like-minded people. Yes. And they live with literally, I could launch something out of a catapult and hit their house. I mean, they're literally in my circle around here, but I don't know a lot of them because they're not going to come here, and we didn't go there. And a lot of it's we're just busy. I'm always baffled how many people don't come to Self-Reliance Festival who are in the immediate surrounding areas. And even I invite people. I'm like, you can come as my guest, come in for the day, and they don't show up.
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
Things that matter most, right?
Yep,
we do.
Yeah, Don Gorham last Self-Reliance Festival was reaching out to people in the community, in your community, who have food trucks.
Yep.
Saying, hey, I know a captive audience where you can sell things, most definitely. And she was shocked at how many people just didn't want the money. She's like, they hate money. So it's interesting, I guess people don't realize what's happening. So John Witherspoon has something for you there. All caps. There's a light switch that can go on the wrong side of the door that will send a signal to a remote. So you basically can change the switch so it sends to a remote on the other side of the door over Wi-Fi. And John, you're going to have to install that for John if it happens.
Yes.
It's the only way
you're elected. You're elected. Let me know when you're going to be here to install it.
The only thing that's confusing about that is they're both named John. So Witherspoon gets to come do that.
Yeah, Evan said he's got something he can wire into all of my stuff too. So when we come, we originally built out the downstairs sewing bay, so it was 20 by 20 units, and we were going to pallet rack it and then wall it off with pegboard because it was just so echoey in here, and we have air registers coming down, so we wanted to be able to cool the zone rather than the whole area. And once we started moving things in, that all the problems went away, so we never divided that. Long story short, I've got 20 light switches downstairs to turn the lights on in all these areas, and Evan's got something that he can put on and just attach to these things, and then we have one controller, and we can actually control it from the phone or whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to address this one. I hope there are food trucks this SRF. The answer is no, but we have food vendors this SRF. After the last SRF, we had a meeting with the people who can produce the food and divided up who's doing which meals, and Big Daddy's is always an option. So I'm sure he'll be cooking up some stuff too. Sorry to interrupt you, John. I thought you were done.
We fill him up. His capacity is really good.
Yeah,
and his food's really good.
Yep, and he can cook anything. So he's actually my catering person of choice for events there because we can just send people down there and they eat and then it's done and we don't have to put up all the tents and the service stuff. So I'm really happy with him. Okay. Well, what else has been on your mind, Tag? How's the Midwest Preparedness Project coming?
Oh, I think pretty good. I don't really play a role much in it anymore. So I don't know the day-to-day stuff, but it looks like it's going to be the biggest crowd they've ever had. I mean, I get emails all the time about it. So I'm excited about going there. I'm excited about, some of the speakers and it's kind of our, my home, area. So I know everybody. So that's good. On the homestead, I'm building. This morning I was out building cinder block walls, mortaring them in. Out in front of my house, and so I was working on that, and animals and housework, and just the normal, everyday stuff, trying to get ready for self-reliance. And then I got Kentucky Sustainable Living behind that, and I think I'm going to Georgia in February, and so working on, some of that stuff. But most of my work gets spent on community, and I'm really excited about pushing the boundaries, and I'm going to try to change some laws coming this next year, which I'm super excited about. Dare me, right?
Yeah.
I hope we win. We'll certainly see, but I'm living life exactly the way I want to live it.
How often do you go into headquarters? Like how often are you at EMP Shield or at Grid Down?
Yeah. So one day a week I'm down at EMP Shield. I go down there once. Grid Down I do from home, from my home office a lot. And all Grid Down is, and I think it's important that I mention this, is what we did is we just basically took all the great stuff and combined it into one package. So we found an American-made company called Lion Energy that built inverters. We use Life Pro 4 batteries. EMP shields go on it. Mission solar panels from Texas go on it. We combined them all, got them into one factory where they would commission them in the factory, send them out to the homeowner. They're turnkey. We went to them. We said, hey, the 10-year warranty ain't going to work for us. We want a 25-year warranty. We got that done in the system. So we just went and spent a bunch of time putting all of this together. Here's the thing at the end of the day. It's the easiest system on the market, and it's 30% less money. And it will absolutely do it, all name brand stuff. And so but as far as the work from home type stuff, I work on it a little bit every single day, just whatever the need is. But I've got great people. And that's the art to a lot of this. I listen to a lot of people, and John, I couldn't agree more. Go build a business. And that's what I've done. I mean, I continue to build them. But I'm also smart enough to know that there's a lot of people smarter than me. And I would rather just kind of have a helicopter mom view on it and, stay at home on my farm and do what I want to do the rest of the time. But it's good.
Yep. So I just was showing your website while you did that. That's griddown.com for people who are wanting to check out those power systems. Yep. I know from years ago when I was trying to wrap my head around solar, it took me meeting Sean Mills from Hack My Homestead to finally understand the wiring. And I had wired a whole house at that point, like the traditional way. So it wasn't like I was stupid about electricity. And he explained it in a very simple way, and I appreciated that. So had we had something like what you have put together for Grid Down, I wouldn't have needed that.
Yeah.
Because it's all done.
Yeah, it's commissioned actually at the factory. So the parts, like let's say you buy 3 inverters, they're all commissioned and firmwared at the factory.
And
So
they're
like
on.
Go ahead.
They're on Instagram, guys. For anybody that wants to see what we're talking about, it's Grid Down, registered trademark R. That's their logo on there. Just give them a follow, and you'll see the packages and everything that we're discussing here.
Yeah, it's very cool. So I also saw a question. Okay, so I would like to give some context about this discussion. So John Willis, Tag, and I know each other because we met through, well, I met you, Tag, through Self-Reliance Festival. I think you already knew John through EMP Shield.
Maybe.
Before then. And so just like that whole thing came together and we hit it off really well. And so John Willis and I do a weekly show at 12:30 on Tuesdays. And we bring somebody on who we talk about. This is the show. However, we stream it on multiple YouTube channels. So we're streaming on your channel, Tag, Life Done Free. We're streaming on Special Operations Equipment, and we're streaming at livingfreeintennessee.com. And I saw a question here saying John sews. So John, tell us about Special Operations Equipment.
I started a company 35 years ago. We manufacture nylon tactical gear. Nowadays, we do a lot of lifestyle stuff too. So if you're not carrying a rifle for a living or you're not concerned about carrying a gun, we do visor covers, belts, holsters, backpacks. I own 52 sewing machines. Right on the other side of the wall in front of me is a 6,000 square foot manufacturing facility. Raw goods come in the door here. We cut them up Barney style like a 5th grader. We trace a pattern. We cut with scissors like making paper dolls. And then we sew them all together. We quality control, and then we ship direct to consumer. We ship 200 to 400 packages out of here every day. And we're all U.S. made. We use as much U.S. manufactured goods as we can. And some of that's changing over time, but we build everything right here. Every piece of gear almost that goes out of the door, I touch. Almost every email that comes through, I answer. If I don't answer it, my wife answers it. And we're in a very close area here, and we all work shoulder to shoulder. When you come out to Self-Reliance Festival, that happens here on my property. This building has a 10,000 foot footprint with a 6,000 foot loft, and we're on 10 acres of property. When we first bought the property, I had no intention to buy the property the day that we did. I didn't have $120, much less the money they wanted for the property. And we bought this place. Amanda said, "What are we going to do?" I go, "I don't know. We'll do some welding and off-road fabrication and have bonfires, and the kids can shoot their bows, and we'll run razors around here." When we bought it, the intention never was to put the company in here. The intention never was to live here on the property either. And over time, we've just done that. I've got a YouTube page, and you can see almost a daily diary of how everything happened for the last, decade or so on YouTube here. And I do a live every night at 9 o'clock where I walk around in the sew factory, and we talk about whatever you want to talk about. We can talk about materials and business and sewing machines or water catchment. We talk about whatever the audience wants to talk about.
Yep. And since you brought up Self-Reliance Festival, I shared that website as well because that's coming up in 4 weeks. And
I think Tag and I originally knew each other or of each other because of Spags Unfiltered.
Yeah, SOE is an awesome channel. Definitely subscribe.
Well, guys, and I'll tell you, I have a SOE backpack. It's my go-to backpack. I take it everywhere I go, everywhere I travel, all of the speeches that I do. It's my go-to. John, I'll tell you a funny story. My wife, when she found out that I was going to be on with you today, harassed me about when I get to you guys. She wants me to buy her a single sling backpack that's tactical without looking like tactical. She's going to use it as a purse. She's going to use it as a purse. So she's like, find me something. I'm like, all right, we'll do it. We'll do it when I get down there.
Isn't she coming out here to SRF with you?
Probably not.
Oh, man, I'm looking for those cinnamon rolls.
I know, right? I'm sorry, I didn't see that question, Nicole. I didn't see it.
So the question is I have a quick question about installing my EMP shield if you have time when this is over.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep, 100%.
So here's a question about EMP shields because I was looking on the website and you have solar system specific ones. So what is different about the units that protect your solar system, because I have a solar system I need to protect. So I was looking for what to get.
Yeah. So this is super easy. So we market the EMP shields like the car model, for example. But the truth is, it's really not a car model. It's a 12-volt model. So this really comes down into voltage. Like, for example, my solar system has 5 9120-volt DC EMP shields. So it's just a matter of understanding the maximum output voltage of a solar panel or a charge controller and matching the right voltage EMP shield to the right system. So it's not really a house model. It's a 12240. It's not really a car model. It's a 12-volt. Like my system's a 9120. But so they're just all different. As long as I understand what the maximum output voltage is, we'll just make send the right unit to fit the right, the right thing. It's all about voltage.
Okay. Does that protect against the lightning strike too?
Actually, I'm gonna tell you, we have the best lightning protection in the country. We have the only one that's got a guarantee, and we have an EMP shield. If you walk on right in the front door, there's a big wall, and it is full of EMP shields that are broken half and that from being hit with lightning. But they do their job great.
So I have an EMP Shield affiliate code. I've been telling people about EMP Shield for a decade before there even was an affiliate code. And every time I mention it on video with an audience, people are like, well, you can't prove that. I go, okay, I can't. But what I can prove is that they'll insure. It's $25,000 per circuit. Is that 25 grand? And I can tell you that my electronic gate opener out here got fried. It was $1,400 to replace it. And guess what didn't have? This building has, I think, a dozen EMP shields in the boxes. That unit out there did not, and it cost me $1,400, and it could have cost me $200.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a big difference. So, John, at what age did you learn to use a sewing machine? Last time I used one, I was 12 from Jaggy Willis.
So I took home ec and didn't learn how to sew. I got a sewing machine when I was probably 18 years old. And a guy dropped it off. He knew how to sew. And he's like, okay, this makes it go. Let off. That makes it stop. And that's what he told me. And I sewed that night until the bobbin ran out of thread. And then I didn't know how to rethread it. And my mom says, it's in your blood. Well, mom sews with a home sewing machine, and loading a industrial machine is very different. You got to clock the wheel to get the bobbin to go in. Not a big deal. But I learned when I was probably 18. But I'll tell you this. Any of you rode a bicycle when you were a child and then didn't ride a bike for 10 years? You know how you can get on a bike and still ride the bike? Or do you remember those swim lessons you took? You might not be a strong swimmer, but you can still swim. That's how sewing is. It's like when you learn to drive that manual transmission. It was very difficult and very frustrating, especially for the person that was teaching you when you were a child. But once you can do it, you can always do it. That's how sewing is.
Yeah, I used to make medieval costumes because I was in the SCA, because I am a nerd, just for full disclosure. And I didn't sew for 15 years. But I used to sew some pretty complex costumes. And the first thing I sewed when I got back to the machine looked like crap, because I made all the same mistakes that it's like, oh yeah, I can do this other way. And by the second thing, you're right. It was sort of like, okay, I can actually sew consistently. And I remember how to get my seams right. And I think it's a great skill to have, because sometimes you can't always run to the store and get the thing, and you just need to repair the thing.
But looking like crap to you, all the people at the Ren Fair, they would have paid money for it, man. You want to look at Adam Savage, right? Adam Savage can work in every medium out of necessity. He wanted to learn how to do those things. But when he started sewing, he couldn't sew. I mean, you just get the equipment and start doing it. We're also worried about, do you guys remember when the internet was there? We just built things because we wanted them, and we weren't worried about what they looked like, or we just needed them to function.
Yeah. We have somebody teaching sewing at Self-Reliance Festival. She'll be in the back garage doing just like hands-on. You can try this. She's bringing a sewing machine. I'm going to bring my spinning wheel so people can learn to spin if they want to. And she also can teach knitting. So if you haven't ever sewn two pieces of fabric together, that's your chance to actually try it and see.
And I'll bet you that I have never sewn whatever it is she's teaching. I've never made a home sewing machine spin. I've never used one. I've only used commercial machines.
Yep. And I can see why, having done a lot of sewing with a home sewing machine, there are frustrating times.
Mhm.
And when I see you sewing and you're just like, I'm like, that's so beautiful. Just
It wasn't
the way.
always. I still like when people want to learn something, we have the answer to everything right here.
Mhm.
Like the internet didn't exist when I learned to sew. And I watch guys, I'll just type in, sewing a tote bag or sewing a tool bag or whatever. And I'll find some dude who has a YouTube channel that's 2 years old. And I'll watch something in there. I'm like, holy cow, man, we can do that process right there and cut that process 50% in our manufacturing. I go, we've been doing it hard. I constantly learn things watching other craftsmen.
Yep. Hand sewing's a good skill to have too, man.
Mhm.
So John, why did you get the sewing machine in the first place?
It's a long story. I've got 1,000 videos on it, but we were doing gun shows and we were selling. Basically, we were buying stuff at flea markets, reselling it at gun shows, making a profit. We had a line of T-shirts we were doing, and this guy had sewed some gear. He was a battalion reconnaissance rigger, and he said, "Hey, take this to the gun show and sell it." So I took it to the gun show, and instead of selling it, I took orders off of it. And I had about $5,000, $2,500 to $5,000 between the two shows. Came back super excited. I'm like, hey, you build these things, and I'm obviously really good at sewing them, so I'll sell it. You build it. We'll split the money. And he said, hey, I'm building parachutes. I've got a bunch of my FFA certifications on my chutes done. I go, well, what are we going to do? He goes, well, you're going to learn to sew or you're going to refund that money. Well, I already spent my part of the money. So I started sewing.
It's funny how that happens to you a lot, right?
Yeah, I mean, so it's paralysis to analysis. Like guys say they want to do something, they don't want to do it. Like if I say I want to do something and I'm not doing it, it's because it's not important enough to me.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of times we say we can't do things, and it's just that we won't.
Yeah, and rather than saying, hey, it's not important enough, they say they can't. I wish I could come to Self-Reliance Festival. Well, why don't you come out? Well, I can't afford it. You can't afford the ticket. You can't afford the travel. What is it, right? And I don't care what you do until you tell me what you can't do.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay, guys, here's one from Jaggy Little Thistle. What skill have you always wanted to learn but not gotten around to learning? Anybody
I can't
have
weld.
one? You want to learn how to weld?
No, I just want to be able to immediately do it. I don't want to have to learn how to do it. I have welders right out here. I've got dudes that can weld. I have not spent the time to learn to weld. Why? Because it's not important enough to me. I'm doing. It's just like I have all kinds of mechanics tools, and I want a beautiful woodworking shop. I hate sawdust. I would have a beautiful woodworking shop and never use it. Right? I can totally change my oil, or I can pay a dude to come here to change my oil, and while he's doing that, I can sit on the sewing machine and more than make the money to pay him to change my oil. And he's an ASE certified mechanic. Whereas if I go to change my oil, it's going to take me 2 hours to find the tools that I need to change the oil.
How about you, Tag? You got anything?
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of things I'd love to learn how to do. I'm a pretty handy guy. I can weld, I can frame, I can do, pretty much all of them. But I'd really like to start getting into some of the other alternative energies and learning how to build a gasifier and learning how it works. I don't really necessarily want to own one. Well, maybe, but just learning how it all works. I think I'm a lifetime learner, so I'd like to learn the more sand batteries, water batteries.
Yep.
Learning how they work. I would just love to have that knowledge somewhere between my ears.
Yeah, I like the idea of being able to burn wood to run a vehicle, right? You see that in all the post-apocalyptic stuff. Somebody was talking about we were talking about solar and EMP shield, and the guy's like, what are you going to do when the batteries fail? And another guy on the live feed was like, oh, you can totally build your own batteries. You can take dead batteries and rebuild them. And people had never heard that, right? I watch a lot of videos that they appear to be in like India. And you see these dudes pulling apart all those car batteries that we throw away, and they're pulling them out, and they're cleaning them all off, and they're building them back on dirt floors, and they're rebuilding all this stuff. If you really want to see what's possible, watch some of the YouTube channels out of third world countries, because they are rebuilding stuff out of our trash.
Right.
Yeah, it's amazing. I know that I would like, and I have not learned to do this proficiently, to either play guitar or banjo. And I'm a musician, so I should be able to do this, but it has been hard for me to get the multiple fingers moving where they need to move. I can play bass guitar, I can play piano, and I've wanted to do that so that when I perform, I don't always have to have somebody playing with me, because it's not usually super convenient to bring my 80-key keyboard, although I could, and play that way. That's something lifelong I have not mastered yet. I can do like 4 chords on the banjo and 5 chords on the guitar, and that's about it. But recently I started learning how to spin. People have heard that. And that was another one. I had always wanted to spin wool. And 20 years later, I finally tried it, and I'm not terribly awesome at it, but it's just, I think it's fun to try new things and go on that journey. And sometimes you discover something you are in tune with. Like I'm in tune with spinning, not in tune with banjo playing, I'm sorry to say. I can sing, but banjo.
So you want to be able to do it. You don't want to have to learn to do it.
That's the issue. That is the issue. I talked to somebody when I first started playing. I'm looking at my banjo. When I first started on the banjo, I had a different banjo in here. And he said, all you have to do is play that banjo every day. John, do I play the banjo every day? That's an issue. So, yeah. My husband taught me to take a 1966 Chevy truck motor out, repair it, and put it back in.
That's awesome.
I know somebody who has a new girlfriend, and I was talking to him today on my drive home from Nashville. We have a Zello channel that's just a community of people who talk. And he said she asked him if this weekend's date could be changing the oil in her car and changing the brakes. And so that's what they're doing for their date. And I was like, yeah, you found somebody who's probably fairly compatible with you. That's a good one.
Yep. Take her out camping.
Yep. I think they've already done that.
Yep. Do that and see how that goes. That's awesome.
Faith says I should have made banjo part of my 75 hard. Well, or it could be that I don't really want to learn it proficiently. That is another possibility. So I don't know. But that's always something. I feel like in the homesteading world, there's always something new to learn. Like I got maybe 40 million texts when Dawn Gorham did her canning class about how to make vinegar, or what do you do if you can't get vinegar? Because she did pickles as one of her things. And somebody asked in an SHTF situation, what do you do if you can't get vinegar for canning?
We all asked you that. We all asked you that we all asked you when it went around that the vinegar they're putting in the grocery store is not of it's off by 2 points to be able to pickle with.
Yeah. And so my answer was, well, then you'll make vinegar. Have I ever made vinegar? No, I have not made vinegar. And then I started seeing on Facebook all these people show their vinegar making projects. So it's, I have accidentally made vinegar by leaving a bottle of wine around too long. I have done that. But the other thing I looked into, John, was what do you do with 3% vinegar when you're pickling?
The question we had was, can we dilute it down to become higher?
Can you distill it? What you do instead is most recipes for pickles have water, vinegar, salt, less water. Because when you add water to the 5% vinegar, you're already diluting it. So I don't have the spreadsheet, but you can put a formula in I'd have to figure it out to figure out how to make that the right percentage and figure out what the percentage is for your specific canning recipe. The better thing to do is at the store, look on the label and make sure you buy 5%. Because then I went into probably 20 different stores and looked at the vinegar and found 0 of them at 3%. And it took about a month. And one of my listeners texted me a picture of their vinegar at their house. And they said, yep, I accidentally bought this 3% vinegar, and it was intended for salad dressing, not pickling. So it was very clear on the label. And they said they're just trying to use it up in however they can in cleaning and whatnot. So it is something. So the best thing to do is just don't accidentally buy it. But what I don't know how to do yet is test the vinegar you make for what percentage that is, what percent acid that is.
Wouldn't that just be a pH meter? Like testing pH for aquarium, probably?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't gone down that track, but that's the next thing to do, because if you ever did have to make your own vinegar, it's interesting to know how that works.
I'll bet Jason will know.
Jason,
I'll ask my wife B. She makes her own vinegar. I don't know what she all does. I don't pay any attention to it, but
awesome.
Yeah. Does she use it for pickling?
She uses it for all kinds of things. She makes it 6-gallon buckets at a time, and they'll sit like for a year or whatever. And don't quote me on any of this because I barely pay attention to it, but it'll sit for a whole long time. And she's got a whole bunch of them lined up. And
it looks like the answer is pH.
So
John knew it out of the chute.
Can you use apple cider vinegar? Would that work?
As long as it's 3% or 5% acid, there's no reason that wouldn't work that I can think of. It's just going to change the flavor of the pickle. And maybe not in a bad way. Faith says, why can't you use a pH meter in canning in general instead of everyone always bitching about Rebel canning? I do use pH. So you can use pH in canning. And if you understand how the process works and why you need to know the pH, then it works fine. And if you get a commercial pH tester, you'll be fairly accurate as well. But
then people couldn't tell you that you're going to kill grandma.
You
will find that most of the people telling you why you shouldn't do something, they haven't done it themselves. It's the internet communities. Look at the Ball Blue Book, right? It changes every 10 years. And if you took some recipes out of a 1960s Ball Blue Book and put them in the canning community Facebook groups, they would lose their minds over it.
They will lose their minds. They will tell you are killing people because canned food in general isn't commercially canned. So it's dangerous. Or it's dangerous if I sell it to tag, but it's not dangerous if I make it for my own family.
Like that raw milk.
Yeah. So we just we got the conversion here. Somebody said 2.4 pH comes out to 5%. Cool. I learned something. Now I'm going to have to go look at why mathematically, but that's just because I need to understand it because it'll be super useful in my canning. I do know that some tomatoes have been bred to be lower acid over the last 150 years, so they don't hurt people's stomachs as much. And that is part of what has led to the adding vinegar or citric acid or lemon to your canned tomatoes. It's because their pH is creeping up above 5, which is not good. So all of the tomato canning recipes say acid. The reason I have a pH tester is I test the pH of my tomatoes before I decide if I'm adding acid, because adding acid to already acidic tomatoes tastes like ass later. So it's better, like if it's high enough acid, not to have to bump that up. The other thing I learned is if you do have a jar of tomatoes that are too acidic and you cook with them, you can add a teaspoon of baking soda, which is basic, and it will mellow that bite out in a batch of sauce or something. So random canning tips. Let's see, Porterhouse. Hi, Porterhouse. What's the best thing you've learned or gained from attending festivals? What do you guys got?
Oh, a lot. First and foremost is I have gained, I think we're up to 6 community members that have come out of some festival, some place that I went, but it's also the friendships. I mean, I met Eric there, have gotten to be good friends. I don't know if you guys remember Tabletop Farms over in Missouri. They were down for a little while, an amazing operation. Those people got it going on. And so I would answer the question, Eric, as relationships.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I've gained the most out of it. Some knowledge, and that's always good, but the relationships to me trumps everything.
How about you, John?
I'd say the same, man. Just tag. I mean, we sat down face to face. We stood out here in the garage for an hour probably and talked. I just realized when I get around him that there's so much more to achieve. You know, just look at what Tag has done and how he's doing it. Like a mentor, I guess, right? Somebody that I can ask advice of. Same with Eric, man. We sat down at dinner a couple times and had dinner. Just the friendship, the people. I don't go a lot of places. I am very lucky that SRF happens here. So the people who are important, they come here. So I get time with them face to face.
It was really interesting. I was talking with Brad. We were talking to the group of people who were at my house for the first Freedom Cell meetup / Homesteaders Alliance meetup. And he said, if Nicole called me in the middle of the night and said, I need you to park the car at the end of your driveway, put as much cash in it as you can, and leave the keys and a full tank of gas, would you do it without asking questions? And he said, yes, he'd do it for Nicole. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's the same answer you're giving, but what I have gained as far as relationships are people who I can count on to be that kind of friend. And not, like that's somebody who will help you, no questions asked. That doesn't mean everybody I've met there is that, but I think of over the 50 years of my life, we had all this. So I grew up in a pretty tight community. And then from about 14 to mid 30s, the community around me was all shallow, fake people. And it wasn't somebody who I wouldn't ask more questions if they called me in the middle of the night. The very few people from that time, I can think of like 2 or 3 who I would do anything for. Coming back into the homesteading and prepper community has, I call it my network of big brothers. Like I met a whole bunch of people, most of them are male in our community, who are like, I have their backs, they have my back, and I'm not worried about it. Like if somebody starts talking crap on one of you all, I'm like, I don't want to hear that because I know the person and I don't need to hear the gossip. Likewise, the women in our community mostly will just give me a direct answer when I ask a question and are also not interested in participating in the he said, she said. And for me, that's a much more comfortable environment than that shallow world I was in, which was fairly politically connected so long ago. I hate that fake world. And it's so much more real. So going to the festivals is something, what I've gained is seeing the bubbles of networks overlap each other as I go to different events, like even going to Next Steps, which is a little bit out of the prepper realm, right? It's more about health freedom. You still got those same kind of people there that you can connect with. So I think it's so important to just get that done and make time for that in your lives rather than, I mean, I guess I keep saying that and I'm going to stop because if you haven't caught on by now, you're not going to.
Yep. Be intentional.
Be intentional and try to be that person, right? Try to be the person that you can be counted on.
Yes.
Because, we all go through times in our lives where we're less count onable. Okay. I saw somebody afraid of canning up here. I've got everything for canning, but I'm so intimidated to actually try it that I haven't gotten any of my canning done yet.
I would ask, are you really intimidated of canning, or is that just an excuse because you aren't doing it? Like people say things like that, right? No can be a one-word answer. No, I don't want to do that. No, thank you. I have a ton of stuff I've never used just because I've never had to use it. But there's plenty of stuff you could can and be completely safe. Nicole has done tons of videos on that. I'm sure they're even open public online on how to can pickles, for instance. You could do just can anything and then just see if you like doing it.
Yep. I was going to say, I'm not sure I have public videos, but if you email me, I can connect you with one video that if it doesn't do it, then it may be that you don't want to can. And canning takes time. And I think it helps to understand how you can't kill yourself with canning. Also, Grumpy Acres, the Allards, are coming to Self-Reliance Festival, and they're doing a whole bunch of food preservation, and they're going to show you how to can properly, and they're going to show you how to can not properly, and they're going to talk about the science behind that and why it is possible to do some of the things that the naysayers say. I think when you understand how food poisoning works and what the food poisoning is, it makes it a lot easier to do it. The video I want to do, though, John, is the one where I put a camera out and I try to make a pressure canner explode. I want people to see what happens when that happens in modern pressure canners. Because a lot of people, you hear about, the Boston bomber, and they're thinking I might have this ticking time bomb in my kitchen, but they are designed to, like, it's really hard to get one to explode. You'd have to do a lot of BS now.
I remember hearing it, when we were getting into survivalist, right? That became prepper when CNN co-opted that term. But when I brought up canning, even my mom said, "Oh, it can be very dangerous with a pressure canner." But you can do a ton of stuff that's not pressure canned. You can water bath can things. And the electric canner, we have 2 Prestos. I've got 3 or 4 All-Americans. I've got the big 41 quart All-American, which is awesome. It's an awesome machine. If the power ever goes out, you can use it over direct flame, which you can't with the electric. But nothing beats those electric canners for the ease of plug-in. They've got a timer. They literally do everything for you. And there's no way to mess up those electric. And they're inexpensive. Just for the convenience of it, I run 2 of them off the same exact circuit in the kitchen at the same time. Whereas your big All-American, you kind of need to be there if it's running. You might want to put a Bluetooth camera on it if it's running. But I mean, it's good to have both things. It's just like heating with wood. You probably still have some propane portable heaters, even though you have a wood burning stove.
So Jules is afraid of messing it up. Go find a recipe for pickles, make pickles. You're not going to mess it up.
Easy.
Go buy don't do the stuff you grew if you don't want to ruin the stuff you grew. But it's very hard if you follow the recipe to mess up canning. You will have the occasional failed jar, but that's life.
We learned how to make, in home ec, we made cinnamon rolls. And then when I came home that weekend, I was going to make cinnamon rolls. And somehow the cinnamon rolls came out ridiculously salty. How did that happen? Well, I probably put too much salt in them. That didn't mean that I never made cinnamon rolls in the rest of my life. I mean, just do it if you want to do it.
Yeah. I'll tell you this. I did a cheese making class, John, and it was the best cheese making webinar I've ever done. People were highly entertained. And I did 3 kinds of cheese. And on the very last cheese, and I always start cheese classes with, the cool thing about cheese is if you fail at cheese, what it usually means is you've made a different kind of cheese. Now, I've never failed a cheese in my life in the class. Totally failed the last cheese. And then I proceeded to show them, also, this is how I'm making farmer's cheese out of this cheese now because I failed the cheese. So we're going to do a different cheese. And I think they liked it because I failed. And I showed them, like, this is how you live that philosophy. Because cheese is delicious no matter what. Mm-hmm. And the only way you really ruin it is if you let, like, the wrong kind of mold. But cheese is so I'm going to make cheese at Self-Reliance Festival again because nobody else volunteered. If somebody hears this and wants to make cheese at Self-Reliance Festival, let me know. I can get you milk. But otherwise, I'll just make it because it's so easy to make and it's so much better than what you get at the store. And it's so much better for you. And you can source milk from a local farmer and just go for it. So I don't know. Just to go on my cheese. That's my weekly cheese rant. Mm-hmm. Schadenfreude and cheese said an amazing combination. It's funny that person has that name. Oh no, Faith said that. She just said Schadenfreude and cheese. That's true. They did. They enjoyed my failure. And I have it recorded. It's for sale at NicoleSauce.com. If you want to get that one, it's a pretty funny class. So learn to make cinnamon rolls in a cast iron at the Midwest Preparedness Project. Tag, can you give us a view of what the Midwest Preparedness Project Festival is like for somebody who's never been there?
Yeah, sure. So, and there's another festival that I've gained tons of relationships. Mike and Jen, Life with Mike and Jen are in the chat. He is my go-to guy I'm going to call if I have a plumbing issue. Anyway, so you got basically Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is pretty much just camping. Everybody just hangs out, sits around the campfire, talks the world events and solves the world problems and, those kind of things. Friday's full of classes back to back pretty much all day long. And then ends at night around the campfire. Saturday is really the big day, though, because you get up, there's a few classes, but there's some events that go on that are amazing, by the way, which is one of them I would recommend you guys do 100% of the time because it's just way too cool to watch. But anyway, so they do a bunch of giveaways. They do a big potluck. But then we have Barter Town. And I'm telling you, I can sit back and lean against a pole and just watch that. That's some like reality TV show shit. I mean, it is really cool to watch how that whole process works. Give a little kid something little and see what they can make out of it by the end of the night. and they trade up and 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 trade up. And it's teaching valuable skills. Super family friendly event. There's kids running around everywhere. It's way more, how would I word this? It's way more of a sit down and visit with your neighbor event versus a learning a skill event, if that makes sense. So it's different from that perspective. But it's a great event. This is like what, 21, number 21, I think. Good God, I'm getting.
I don't
old.
know.
Yeah, I think it's 21. I think this is the 21st one. Yeah, I've been going on a long, long time. But it's a good time. It's free. The camping's paid for. Everything's paid for. All you got to do is show up. Bring your food. Bring something to drink. That's it.
What's the event that you were going to say we should be doing?
Bartertown.
Got it.
It's John, I'm going to tell you something from a people. I don't know if you like to people watch, but I could sit back and watch people all day, every day. And just to watch how no money allowed, no currency allowed. None.
Do you remember that there was a guy who wrote a book about this? I think they did a movie about him too. He was on Craigslist and he had a paper clip and he said, "What will you trade me for a paper clip?" And over a series of, I think it was a year, maybe it was a little more, he traded from the paper clip, traded up into a house.
Yep. I remember that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
In
fact, I would love to have a barter town at Self-Reliance Festival long term.
Yeah.
But I feel like you guys should be the hosts of that because you already do it.
I don't think it matters. I mean, I think if we sit around and worry about who gets credit for what or where something came from, we're never going to accomplish the big goal. At the end of the day, it's a fun event, and this is something I'm going to tell you something that nobody else knows, that even Midwest Preparedness don't even know. But I purposely go out and buy a bunch of little things to give to the kids so that they can go through the process. And I set the whole thing up for them. And I try to guilt everybody into giving the kids good stuff. And that's my role in the whole process. But I'm going to buy a whole trunk load of stuff this year and I'm going to give it to the kids and tell them to give at it, Come back and show me what you got.
Yep.
I think that's awesome. Where can I find a parking pass for Big Daddy next door? For Self-Reliance Festival, you buy those when you get to the event. If you bought the pass that includes your VIP pass, it will be at registration in your packet. So it just depends, but we do those on site. What's up, Chuck? You should not ask him that. Say, what's happening, Chuck? What's happening, Chuck? I have a stepdad named Chuck, so I've actually made that mistake a few times and then heard the words come out of my mouth. So, well, I'm glad I got to talk about cheese and canning today. I don't always get to do that on the live stream. And those are a big part of my life. In fact, I have beans to can today. So I did the deep harvest in one of my times home. And I realized, I was like, I have 4 more jars of beans I can put up for the winter. So it's a game here. Can we grow what we actually need or not? Play that. You play that game, right?
Oh yeah. And food independence is the hardest of all of them.
Yep.
All the rest of them you can buy your way to. But food independence you cannot buy your way to. You got to sweat your way to. And it's just one of those things. We are still not growing 100% of our food, and we have big gardens and we have animals and we have all of that. But not everybody has a salt mine. Not everybody has a sugar plantation. Not everybody has these things. This is again why community is so critical. We can create the parallel economy. We can create it. We can create that counter economy, but it's going to take all of us together.
How many people work on your garden and maintain your animals on your property?
Yeah, so 90% of the time it's me and my wife. Now we do have, I don't know if it's fortunate, I don't know if that's the right word or not, but we have a lot of visitors. There's people at my house quite often who will come down. Callie, I think I seen her on your guys' speaker list, which by the way, you guys listen to that speech.
Yeah, she actually had to cancel. So I think I have an herbal medicine person coming in, but I'm still confirming that change. Yep.
So she'll come down and spend a week with me, and then a week will go by and someone else will spend. So once in a while, B will have some help preserving or harvesting seeds or whatever comes into it. But I've tried to create a life where my homestead can be managed by one person. And the reason I want to do this is why the reason why my goal is there is because if I can make it managed with one person, then if either one, me or my wife, something comes up, we can still manage it. But more importantly than that, if I can manage it with one person, that means it's half time for me and her, and I can enjoy her and she can enjoy me and we can enjoy our life together. And so I'm always building systems. I mean, my watering systems to my animals are all automatic. Everything happens by itself. We don't have to, everything. does it for us. And I do that because I want to enjoy my wife. She's my best friend and she's a hottie and I like it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always get a farm sitter in for Self-Reliance Festival, and I just realized this year we invested in a mostly automated chicken coop, which is going to make that whole thing way easier. Now I got to do the ducks. The ducks are a little harder, but
I hate ducks.
I love my ducks. I love duck eggs. Yeah. So Jason's talking about showing how to distill vinegar at Self-Reliance Festival. He's like, I can distill it so far it'll burn your skin. Woo, woo, woo.
Yeah.
So, yep. I think that's a big mistake a lot of people make is they go down sort of the growing your food, raising your animals lifestyle. And John was talking about it earlier. He's like, start with one animal. No homesteader I've ever met actually took that advice. We just always give it after we've ended up in the situation where we have 900 ducks and 3 goats and whatever and find ourselves overwhelmed. But if you actually do it that way, you'll develop the systems for the animals as you go. Like that's the ideal. I don't know. Maybe Tag did that, but we didn't do that here. I don't think John did that at his place either.
I try to create systems for everything. People think, well, my friends think I'm a dork, but I'm a big believer. And I'm going to be 75 someday. I'm going to be 80 someday. And the easier it is, I don't want to work hard to live free. I want to barely work and live free. So that's my choice.
I feel like there's a book you need to be writing in there somewhere.
I know, right?
Spare time. Right?
Yep. I got to build.
You can always hire a ghostwriter if you can get the principles down.
Right.
There's a ghostwriter coming to Self-Reliance Festival. I can introduce you. Just remind me if you're interested.
Introduce me because there'll be some. I definitely have some creative writing projects coming up.
Yeah, I know who it is. I just like writing, so I've never hired a ghostwriter. But I might have to hire one to rewrite my book. We'll see. Depends on how many edits I get back from the editor. So, chickens and raised bed garden in the spring. Nothing more until we master those. So, NT Living is doing it. They've taken the advice. Good. Smart. I bet you had your infrastructure for your chickens too before you started, right? None of this building the brooder as the chicks are there needing to be warm.
No.
That was 16 years ago. I was like, wow, this was stupid. But you can build a chicken brooder out of a brooding lamp and cardboard, just for the record.
We did for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to a flea market and bought an instant farm. Like we brought back a goat with 2 babies. We bought 2 Pyrenees puppies. We bought ducks, chickens, guineas, like everything, and then took them to the old building and had nowhere to put them. We didn't have anything. Shit, I just bought another 60 baby chickens and didn't have a brooder. I mean, I've just got troughs. We just set a trough up, put some wood shavings in it, and hang a light.
Yep. I'll say automating water in my garden this year, I have always put that off, and that has made a huge difference in the quality of my garden. Just because, unlike John, who's willing to water his plants by hand, I don't get out there and do it when I should. So now it just does it. And that was a big change for me. And it was so easy to do once. Like what was always in my, so like that toolbox fallacy, right? What was always in my way was like that custom drip system I was going to put in that's still not. No, I got 2 sprinklers and a 2-zone timer and it just goes. And it's not ideal, but.
Anybody watering their garden off of city water? Anybody doing that?
I know people who do that. Like I did that before I had well water and it did not kill the plants like they say it's going to.
Yeah.
Never had a problem with that.
Yeah, we did it for, I don't know, 40 years of my life probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, we use rainwater.
Yeah. I think that's just fear mongering, or it's a reason. It's another excuse, John, to not have a garden.
I think again, it's people on the internet telling you things and you're like, awesome. Where can I see a picture of your garden? But most of the people out there most of the people speaking in the negative aren't doing what they're preaching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think instead of discouraging those people for using city water or whatever it is, let's encourage them and be proud of them and celebrate their victory of growing some of their own food.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday on the live feed. I think people were saying something, and I go, well, if you just quit buying food through a hole in the wall, quit eating clown food, even if you shop the outside of Walmart, right? What's there? Milk, vegetables, meat. I think we can all agree that it's not the best quality meat, but you're going to be a whole lot better than what 95% of the population's putting in their body. Yep. It's like Spearco always says, Miracle Grow. Oh my God, miracles grows the devil. I think we all know that. But I grew, I don't know, we did 20 extra raised beds this year, and we tried every soil that was out there to include like $50 a bag soil. The Miracle Grow grows best the first year. You won't get much out of it the second year, but that first year, you want to have an impressive garden, Miracle Grow soil works.
Yeah. Then you can augment that soil to make it more living soil as you go.
Yep.
Yeah, I just add rabbit. We add rabbit manure the next year.
Yeah, rabbit and wood chips, done. I bet biochar would help too, but I haven't put my biochar thing together yet. So biochar is on my list for my pasture because it needs a better capacity to retain moisture when it rains at this point. But the ruminants are doing it just by rotating through. I just want to speed that up a bit. So yeah, that's true of so many things. People who are telling you no or why you can't are usually not the people you should be listening to unless they have a reason. Like if you had said, send me a picture of your garden, and they sent you a picture of their dead garden, that it was clear that it was from city water and not from not watering it, then okay,
We took everything that people tell you can't do and won't work and did that. And some of it didn't work well, right? There's definitely better ways to do things. But we were on this property for over a year with all those goats, and we didn't have any fencing. There was no fencing on the property, and we had 20 goats here on the property. We had, the first fencing that was up here, it was just whatever wire. Part of it was chicken wire, part of it was cattle panels, very few T-posts, and we just relied on zip ties. The whole fencing was done for years with zip ties.
Hey, whatever gets the job done at some point.
It all worked. It all worked.
I think it's cool that John, you and I are about the same age. We were raised at a time where you just had to try stuff because you couldn't just go look on YouTube and figure out the quote unquote right way. Like, I love YouTube because I will do something I've done a million times, and I'll go say, like, how is this supposed to be done? And I'll realize I've been doing it a really long, slow way for my whole life. But at the same time, I was getting the thing done because you just tried. You tried things until you failed, or until you succeeded. You failed until you succeeded is how to say that. And I don't know. Forgot my cap.
I don't know what that
Could
is.
you lose? I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is either.
Lava rock, probably. Lava rock instead of biochar. It seems like I could inoculate it with rabbit manure, and you were saying I wouldn't want to put lava rock in my garden soil because then I'd be running into lava rock. I use lava rock in my aquaponics system, and it works great as a place for little critters to live. And when I start a new aquaponics system, I actually transplant, instead of water from one, to inoculate it with the healthy bacteria. I take some of the lava rock out to the new system to help kickstart it.
You see people do that with the aquarium balls in their filters, same thing, to pop their tanks off.
Yeah. So, you could. I just wouldn't want to have to dig through lava rock to put.
Yeah, we saw that a lot at the house in San Diego. Everything was landscaped with lava rock, back in the, 70s maybe. So as you were putting gardens and things in, you would dig down and find this layer of just lava rock that people had there. It never kept us from doing anything, but it was definitely present. It was there.
Yep. Cool. All right, guys. Well, we're turning the corner on 2 hours. Should we go once around the horn? Let's start with you, Tag.
Yeah, well, I think if you want to check out what we're doing down here in Kansas, you can look at the MidwestPreparednessProject.com. You can look at freesteading.com, which will help you yoke up with other people. And there's some other sites out there, Freedom Cells and PrepperNet and some of the other ones. But I'll be at the Self-Reliance Festival, and we all make time for the things that are most important. And it's simply a priority issue. And I tell people this all the time. And if you didn't do it because it wasn't a priority, it really comes down to that. So make it a priority. And we'll be able to yoke up together and come see me when we're there. We'll sit and visit. I'll help you with your community. You can help me with my community or whatever it is. Go check out griddown.com. Obviously, that's been a really good place for us. And I guess that's it.
Cool. John.
SOE Tactical Gear is the website. That's where we really make money. I've got a bunch of videos on YouTube. I do a live every night. Jump on, see what we're about. We'll talk about whatever you guys want to discuss. That's really it. I'm on every social media platform there is. Almost all of them are SOE Tactical Gear.
And a good reason to jump on John's live is it's not just the vast entertaining monologue that he's giving you, but the questions that they're asking and the people you'll meet in the comments it's a really good way to tap into the SOE network. So it's not just John, it's also the people you'll meet in his comments. It's, I have known people in his comments who I then later met in person, and they had to tell me who they were on YouTube because their name was different. And I was like, oh yeah, you're that person I always talk to in the comments there. So definitely check that out. Guys, I'm Nicole Sauce, and I have a podcast called Living Free in Tennessee. You can download it on any catcher you have. I also organize the Self-Reliance Festival, which is coming up October 14th and 15th. We've got Tag speaking on building community, and he's going to help me do the connecting people piece. So we put a purposeful focus on connecting you with people who are near you, even if you're not from Camden, Tennessee, because I just got somebody from Hawaii who just bought a ticket this week. So we've got Hawaii coming in. I'm hoping our other Hawaii crew will be there so we can connect those people. We've never had a time where we didn't find somebody to connect with somebody so that they can start building their community in their location. We've also got John Willis speaking. Joel Salatin's going to be there. He's going to focus more on freedom and building freedom into your life than the homesteading stuff. But then on Monday, he's going to kick off a class on how to process chickens. So if you want to learn how to process chickens from the master, that's also at selfreliancefestival.com. We've got Jack Spirko coming, and he's going to talk about why you do want to learn about artificial intelligence. I've been looking for somebody willing to debate him on that, and nobody has raised their hand yet. I'm looking for somebody, if you're interested in debating Jack on AI from the other perspective of AI is dangerous, then let me know and I'll set it up. My caveat is your central argument cannot be that they are demons, because I don't think that's going to make a really good conversation on stage. But there are critical points that could be brought up if somebody's up for that. And of course, who's missing Controversy Blend? Is anybody missing Controversy Blend that SOE used to sell? Well, we're going to get that back up and running. I talked to John about a month ago about getting sort of a situation where we can drop ship it for him. And I will have that out by the end of the week. You can get your Controversy Blend freshly roasted at hollowroast.com. And I'll be shooting you a link, John, so you can put it on your website too, if you're interested in that. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. Hope to see you soon. And we'll be back next week.